Jax Tonic is a singer-songwriter from Sydney who released his debut single On the Front Foot last year, and he now has a new single, Country Boy. We're going to talk about whether or not he actually is a country boy. Hello, Jax.
Hello, Sophie. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And I've been tapping my toes along to Country Boy. So I'll start by asking you, what is the story behind it?
Yeah, look, I'm glad you're tapping your toes. It's the type of song that gets people going, and the story behind it. It sort of was written about a country boy. I obviously grew up on the beaches myself. My mum was from Forbes, so she always spoke about the country and growing up in the country. But the song essentially is, a tribute to the country boys who live on the farms and people who live on the farms, and to farmers and their families. And I wrote it during lockdown. I was in a quite sort of deep and meaningful phase where you're just in lockdown, you're thinking about things deeply, and with all the idea of the droughts through around 2017, and then fires 2019 to 2020, and all those things sort of just in recent years, not to mention years and years and years of farmers and what they've been through, but it just started to roll off the tongue, and just the lyrics started to flow. And I just realized that the song I was writing was about people who live in the country and how they go through the ups and downs of it all.
Yeah.
So it's really just a tribute to them and what they're doing.
You mentioned that you wrote it during lockdown. Were there other songs that came out of that time? Because you said, you found yourself thinking about things quite a lot. So was it a fertile creative period for you?
It was. And I think a lot of people went through the same sort of thing, where it was a really fertile period. You're almost going from song to song and realizing that each one is got a lot of substance.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is about that, but just almost being incubated into a little shell or a bubble, and just writing and just having that time where it almost felt like the world stopped around us. Everybody was in their little house, being forced to be in there, not going to work and not going on buses and all those sorts of things. So, your creativity and the way you're thinking about storylines and lyrics, it definitely gives you that inspiration to create things. And you can only imagine how the people on farms and out in regional areas, how they'd feel through lockdown as well. It's you know what I mean? The city people had to do it, but to the farmers out there, it would have affected them in different ways, and they had other worries to go through as well.
Well, they had to keep primary producing for us, I guess, was a big part of it. It was, they couldn't necessarily protect themselves from what was going on. They had to be out in the world making things, not manufacturing, growing things, sending them on to people in the city so we could eat and clothe ourselves.
Like so many industries, they had to adapt, and that seems to be the way of the world through that period. It was written as, he's a country boy and he's proud of it, and this is the work he does, but it's also about their families. And I can just hear the ladies out there saying, what about she's a country girl, so I'll have to do a sequel to the song about a country girl. But
you're a bloke, so I think we can give you a pass for singing about a country boy. You don't necessarily have to cover the field with it, but you do have the line, they don't make them like that anymore. And I'm wondering if there are men in your life where you think, oh, they don't make them like that anymore.
Oh, I think everybody's got a grandfather or a dad or something where they were just old school. And like I said, adapting, that's what the new farmers have done. All these young blokes out on the land have had to adapt with all their technology and all their different ways of running their farms. In the old days, old school farmers, talking about not building them like that anymore, they had to adapt to what they were going through, and a lot of that was just sheer grit and hard work ethic. And not that they're not doing that these days, the young blokes or the young ladies out there on the farms, but it's different. They've adapted differently. They might have to be in front of a computer or doing some admin, or trying to work out how they're going to make ends meet between periods, sitting inside an office for,
Yeah.
for half the day. I don't know. But in the old days, it was out there and just getting the hands dirty and getting up, basically, as the song says, crack of dawn, and just day after day after day, going through the ups and downs of weather, and all the different tests that
Mm.
the farm life put them through. But yeah, it's look, you could just imagine, it's probably easy for me to write sitting, in my bedroom or wherever I'm writing the song, um, and think about it and create it. But for someone like me to come up with that idea from the Northern Beaches, I must have had something in my mind. Like, obviously my mum talked about Forbes and the old days and growing up there and all that sort of stuff. But for me to create that and think of this song as a tribute to these farmers, it's
Mm.
interesting. It's interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, well, I guess you have a perspective on it that people who are working in it wouldn't have. Their perspective would be different, obviously. They wouldn't necessarily pay tribute to themselves, I guess, whereas it probably does take someone from outside and geographically quite different to look at it and think, yeah, I can see what's going on here and I acknowledge it.
Well, yeah, it's an absolute. I think it's got to make them feel good. It's got to be a compliment in some way, shape, or form, that people are taking notice. And like you said, through COVID and through all these different time periods where these farmers were putting food on our table, and the prices, there was price wars, and the prices were going up and
Mm.
going crazy in terms of all the things they had to adapt with, or adapt to. Um, you know, we basically just get the food on our plate, or we know people who are going through those lines if we have friends or families out on the land, and it just makes you really stop and think what's going on, and
Yeah.
and the world we're living in. So it's another tangent to think about, and coming into the country music scene and getting amongst it, and taking a look around. That's what I saw, so I wrote about it.
So quite a few years ago when you were playing live a lot, did music ever take you to country towns or were you playing just in cities?
Yeah, I used to go to a few country towns. Like, I used to play Mudgee on New Year's Eve. We used to go out there and play one of the hotels out there. I met this couple who ran this pub on the outskirts of Mudgee, and I used to go and just lock in there about 8 p.m. and just keep going till past midnight. And we just have about 150 locals, just having a ball and singing
Yeah.
along. And yeah, so it took me to Mudgee. I've been out to Alice Springs, had 6 weeks residency at Lassiter's Casino, out there in Alice Springs, and that was unbelievable. Like, singing there, sharing that with a guy back in the day, another singer, and you'd share the stage, and they would give you a bit of sanity, a bit of peace of mind in the quiet during the day.
Yeah.
But a lot of it was just jumping on a bike and doing some exercise through the town and riding around Alice Springs, and then singing at night. So
Yeah.
yeah, I've played up and down the coast, done a lot of traveling. So you'd set gigs as you go and try to
Mm.
find a pub or a gig on the way. And I suppose that's what I'm going to start doing with when I start playing festivals soon. So that's the aim, to try to get into festivals and pick up a few pubs on the way. I'm no stranger to picking up a pub on the way and stopping and asking them for a room, or getting a
Right.
tent out and staying there and sleeping the night after you sing.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, I think that's all pretty much ahead of me for the next year or two, and I'm looking forward to it.
Because there is that transition that happens when you're releasing originals, that you want to have shows that are just for your original music, but so much of the work is cover shows. So is it a case of having to leave behind the more regular work that you used to and move towards those shows, or can they coexist?
Oh, look, I think you get to a point where you have to make a decision about what you want to do, because it's so tempting to fall back into doing a whole lot of covers and performing other people's songs, and then people just knowing you as that. And I think you get to a point, and every musician gets to this point, where you've just got to, you know, stop the cover gigs, so to speak, to a certain extent, and then start booking the originals. But very handy to know your covers and know how to read a crowd. So if you know, if they're sort of staring at you and they're like, "Oh, we've heard these originals now, they're all new to us," and then you pull out a little bit of a cover, they start wiggling or grabbing another drink at the bar, and then a couple of those, and then you pop back into an original, and you just got to read the crowd. You know, that's what the covers scene has taught you.
Yeah.
Every musician knows that, and we love it too. We love playing covers because those songs are legendary songs. You know,
Yeah.
a good song's a good song. So.
Is there a particular artist who you like to cover a lot because you know those songs will always get the crowd going?
Um, I mean, look, in terms of covers and things like that, I have a variety of different artists. I definitely don't have one. I tend to play a lot of 70s, you know, like the old sort of stuff, like Country Roads, you know, Leaving on a Jet Plane, and The Gambler, and Sweet Home Alabama, and Brown Eyed Girl, and you know, rock, Van Morrison, Creedence. Like, you can dip into all of those different sort of styles and songs, and Paul Kelly, and you know,
Mhm.
I had a list. I used to have a list of about 300 songs that I knew off by heart and used to play, and you know, you never really forget them. But that in itself sets you up to create and write better songs yourself,
Yeah, right.
which I find quite good. You know, like in terms of the experience that you've had playing those songs numerous times, and then, as I said, your ear just starts to pick up what sounds right and wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, no particular. I mean, I love singing nowadays, like classics. From Keith Urban, and you know, like, I don't know, like even those sort of songs, like people love that too. Oh, Keith, you know, he's doing great at the moment. So can't go
Yes,
wrong with those sort of songs.
that's true. But it's interesting what you say about covers being a way to train you as a songwriter, because some musicians might think, oh, I don't want to, like, other people's music might get in the way of me writing my own stuff. But to think of it as an education, and like a performative education is great, I think.
Yeah, yeah. It's all about making the crowd feel good,
Mhm.
and you can play a slow ballad, and it can get to people in the right moment.
Yeah.
You can be halfway through a set, like, you know, I'd be halfway through a set previously, and you just pull out a nice slow song, and if the crowd's going along with you, they'll pull out their lighters and, you
Yeah.
know, start getting the old lighters out and swaying them around. They're still on the dance floor and they're still going, and then you can go into the next up tempo sort of songs. So yeah, but that is so important. Learning all the classics and playing them, and I think that's part of music. The respect.
Mhm.
It's almost like paying homage to
Mhm.
those who came before. You know.
Yeah, right. Now,
Yeah.
when you released on the front foot, it was after quite a few years away from being a performing artist, and music at one time was your full-time focus. How has it felt getting back to music?
Oh, it's been unbelievable. I think the best thing about it, or the best part about it, is probably meeting all of the people in the country music scene,
Right.
and how accessible they are and how down to earth they are. And that has helped me considerably, because back in the day when you were doing gigs and you were out and about, it was the same. You were meeting, you know, old rockers, you know, choir boys, the Oils, all those sort of
Mm.
guys. You'd be bumping into them up at the Cross, King's Cross, and you know, end up in a studio and they're just hanging out on a lounge with their guitars and drum kit, and you know, just writing or whatever, and you find yourself in a room with them, and you're sort of talking about it, and getting inspired by it, and that's, I liken those sort of experiences with what I'm sort of going through now.
Right.
You know, I went to Tamworth and took my 10-year-old daughter. She wanted to come, so I took her, and I just we walked around the place and just met different people and different artists, and
Yeah.
had a chat with them, and the same sort of thing. And now I'm on, you know, on calls and chatting to people, and getting tips and tricks, and getting the rundown off yeah, all these awesome musicians and artists. And that has made it easier to have
Right.
that big break,
Mhm.
and then not see people. It's amazing, like when you disappear and you're just doing a day job,
Mhm.
um, how yeah, it just feels like nothing's really changed, like time stood still, coming back. And I've spoken to Troy Kemp and touch base with him again, and that's been awesome. Just talking to people like him who've just been working so hard for so many years, and doing so well. And it's just
Yeah.
nice to rekindle the friendship. I think the friendships are foremost, the most important. Getting the connections with people, and yeah, just so many. Yeah, the answer is so many nice people that I've met. Just so many nice
Which
people.
is
I'm
which
not
is
just
so
saying
great
that.
to hear. As someone who's a fan of Australian country music, but it's also great for other fans of country music to know that the other artists are really supportive and that there is a lot of sharing of information. I know that happens because
Mm,
I hear it from a few people, but for you to come into a scene that wasn't yours originally because you were in rock,
yeah,
it must be great. And this is not to sound, it might sound a little odd to say in middle age, but you have a
mm,
family and you've had a day job and everything, and it is scary, I would imagine, to try to start again at a certain point of life.
yeah. I don't know anybody around me who would do
Right.
it. Like, I mean, the mums and dads and people in my life
Yeah, yeah.
anyway. Like when I walk up and down the street, and none of those people would probably do what I did. They were all probably pretty shocked, when I was saying I was going to do it. But I always
Yeah.
knew that I'd done the gigs before, I'd been immersed in it, and I knew how it all worked, and I knew my level of talent,
Right.
whether I could have a go at
Wow.
it again, and
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff. So, um, and I was happy to do that. So, um, yeah, it's a funny thing, but it's instinct. And yeah, as I said, I think COVID had a lot to do with it, and lockdown and all that sort of
Mhm.
stuff. It had a lot to do with a lot of people changing and adapting in various
Mhm.
regions. But I suppose something that's probably even more prominent than that was one of the catalysts, I suppose, COVID and lockdown. But it was the country music scene, and how inviting it is, and how interesting all the music is, how
Right.
cool it is.
Yeah.
Like, you have to admit, it's a, if you're a smart person, you can see what's going on.
Mm.
It's good music. It's
It's
really,
really good. Yeah.
really
Really good.
old, rootsy, old, old school sort of music and sound. I'd almost like to have a go at getting more fiddles and more banjos in my music, and going down that other path as well. I mean, I'm doing country rock, but all that sort of sound appeals to me as well,
Yeah.
with the classic country instruments, and that kind of is starting to become something that I'm thinking about at the moment. Getting a bit
Mm.
more of a country sound. I might have to give Matt Fell a call or something, or Rod
Well, the good
McCormick or
thing
something.
is there
I don't
are,
know.
the musicians are around. That's the other thing, is having been to Tamworth and made connections. If you want to have fiddles and banjo and you don't play those instruments yourself, there are some great musicians around who
Oh yeah.
can play on your recordings.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And that's the most amazing thing about it all. How many awesome musicians there are, and all the talent that lies within that area, and that just makes you want to hone in your craft as well,
Mhm.
and get bring yourself, up further to a higher level. But at Tamworth, I was there watching these guys on that main stage out in the park,
Yeah.
watching everyone from Southbound to Adam Brand, and Shannon Knoll, and everybody just singing in front of me, and just watching the instruments, the guys playing, and the band. And uh, for a punter, for a country music fan, like, they would love it. Like, I'm an artist and I'm standing in the audience, and I think I've got to get along to a few more festivals myself, which is probably a good thing.
There's
Probably
plenty
what
of them this year. Now that your daughter has been with you to Tamworth, are you cool dad or are you daggy dad? What did she think of it?
She definitely rates me as cool dad.
Oh, great.
She definitely rates me as cool dad. She's been at school, and I think the first week that the teacher ended up playing on the front foot music video to the class, and I bumped into a dad at one of the cocktail parties, and he said, "Oh mate, yeah, I've had your song on in my car. My daughter came home and wanted to play it in the car." So that's a good thing. Kids don't lie. So
Yeah, it's also a good avenue of promotion that perhaps hasn't been thought of before. It's the classroom.
I'm bringing across all these mums and dads into country music as well.
That's great. We love a grassroots movement via primary school.
Yeah, why not? And like I said, she's just inspired not only by me going there and singing. You know, I turned 50 this year, and you know, I go along and I'm getting up on stage and I'm singing the crowd my original songs that I've written, and she's seen me do that. But I don't know whether she likes watching me do that more or whether she liked meeting all the big artists. I think she really loved meeting the other artists as well, and she bonded a lot with some of the female artists out there. She just got inspired, which is really good. She's come back and she's straight into learning the trumpet.
Right.
So yeah, she's got into the trumpet, and yeah, amazing. I'm so happy that she's getting onto an instrument. I get the guitar out every now and again and teach her a couple of chords. But she's inspired by that, and just that whole waking up in the morning, going to breakfast, walking around the streets in Tamworth, and you know, chatting to people. And it was one of the best festivals I've ever been to, pretty much in my life. I'm sure that it was the same for her. She's only 10, but it just worked. It works because people are just so nice, and yeah, it's just genuine. And it's nice to get out of the city as well.
In the country, leading us back to your single Country Boy. So what do you have planned next? Have you recorded some other singles? I imagine you've written some other singles.
Yeah, I've written some new songs as well, but I've got a couple more recorded, and just looking to release those over time. And yeah, pretty excited about those. Can't wait for them to sort of come out. And yeah, it's back into the studio to record some new ones as well, for the future. And then yeah, there seem to be plenty of music coming, and I've got a few people wanting to collaborate with me as well. So I'm really looking forward to songwriting with a couple of other people, and you know, putting some stuff together. I did a really interesting songwriting course the other day with Alan Caswell, which was absolutely brilliant. And just kind of learning that what you're doing right, and you know, relating it to what he's doing as a legendary songwriter, and an inspiration, and just getting the juices flowing amongst, you know, a group. There was about 12, 13 people there, and they were all
was it an in-person? Oh my goodness.
person. And you know, Alan Caswell comes to the Northern Beaches, and all these people, you know, get in there. And yeah, as I said, just even the other songwriters, they were awesome. And just being amongst it. Yeah, sometimes it's a combination of trying to pinch yourself and go, oh, am I really here? Versus you know, I better step up and keep performing here, and you know, really make the most of this. So I think everyone's in the same boat. As you say, there's so much talent coming out, and it's nice to be amongst it, because it just lifts our bar as well amongst each other.
I think that's absolutely true, and it's a reason why the music is so strong in this country. The country music is so strong in this country because the standard is very high. The festival has a lot to do with it, because everyone's there and can meet the other artists and see what's going on. But I think the thing I'm taking from what you're talking about your own work is that you're having fun, and how wonderful it is to have fun at any stage of life. But it's great for your daughter to see you having fun. It's great for you to have fun and make choices in your life that lead to joy. Basically.
Well, this is right, and she's going to learn from that as well, and that's part of her learning and how she'll live her life. You know, doing something that is fun, and always leading in your life, and leading into something that makes you happy.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just, yeah, like I said, the lockdown and everything had a lot to do with getting people, putting the cracker up people and making them do it. But now they find themselves in a position where they've got the ball rolling, and it's just, yeah, the whole industry and the whole genre is a lot of fun. And it's like you're saying too, it's spreading, you know, it's spreading up the northern beaches. There's line dancing groups up the northern beaches. My mum was doing a bit of line dancing there. And that goes back to her days in Forbes, you know, growing up as a little kid out in the country, and just, you know, rekindling those memories, and what she did as a child. And yeah, all of that has rubbed onto me, and I think that's what's pushed me as well to always want to wear cowboy boots and do that. I was even doing that, like I said, in 2000 to 2006, like doing the Duke Boy show.
Yeah.
And I loved watching the Dukes of Hazzard, and, you know, Bo and Luke Duke racing around, and Uncle Jesse, and all that sort of stuff. So that's all, you know, getting the juices flowing and making you want to be country.
Yeah.
That's what I love.
Well, it is fun listening to your single Country Boy, and it's great to hear you have new music planned. People can check out your socials and website, I'm sure, for shows that are coming up. And in the meantime, Jax, great to talk to you again.
Thank you so much, Sophie. Thanks. See ya.